If you'd like to chant along, the chant is loose. It's inside of your of the booklets there, if you'd like, or you can just listen along.
The great way is not difficult for those not attached to preferences. When neither love nor hate arises, all is clear and undisguised, separated by the smallest amount, however, and you are as far from it as heaven is from earth. If you wish to know the truth, then hold on to no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the fundamental nature of things is not recognized, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. The way is perfect, as vast as space is perfect, where nothing is lacking and nothing is in excess. Indeed, it is due to our grasping, rejecting, that we do not know the true nature of things, live neither in the entanglements of outer things, nor in ideas or feelings of emptiness. Be serene and at one with things, and erroneous views will disappear by themselves. When you try to stop activity to achieve quietude, your very effort fills you with activity. So as long as you remain attached to one extreme or another, you will never know oneness. Those who do not live in the single way cannot be free in either activity or quietude, in assertion or denial. Deny the reality of things and you miss their reality. Assert the emptiness of things and you miss their reality. The more you talk and think about it, the further you wander from the truth. So cease attachments to talking and thinking, and there is nothing you will not be able to know. To return to the root is to find the essence, but to pursue appearances or enlightenment is to miss the source. To awake even for a moment is to go beyond appearance and emptiness. Changes that seem to occur in the empty world we make only real because of our ignorance. Do not seek for the truth, only cease to cherish opinions. Do not remain in a dualistic state. Avoid such easy habits carefully. If you attach even to a trace of this or that, right and wrong, the mind essence will be lost in confusion. Although all dualities arise from the one, do not be attached even to the ideas of this one. When the mind exists undisturbed in the way, there is no objection to anything in the world. When there is no objection to anything, things cease to be in the old way. When no discriminating attachment arises, the old mind ceases to exist. Let go of things as separate existences, and mind too vanishes. Likewise, when the thinking subject vanishes, so too do the objects created by the mind. The arising of others gives rise to self. Giving rise to self generates other. Know these seeming two as facets of the one fundamental reality. In this emptiness, these two are really one, and each contains all phenomena. If not comparing, nor attached to refined and vulgar, you will not fall into judgment and opinion. The great way is embracing and spacious to live in. It is neither easy nor difficult. Those who rely on limited views are fearful and irresolute. The fast they hurry, the slow they go. To have a narrow mind and to be attached to getting enlightenment is to lose one's center and go astray. When one is free from attachment, all things are as they are, and there is neither coming nor going. When in harmony with the nature of things, your own fundamental nature, you will walk freely and undisturbed. However, when mind is in bondage, the truth is hidden, and everything is murky and unclear, and the burdensome practice of judging brings annoyance and weariness. What benefit can be derived from attachment to distinctions and separations? If you wish to move in the one way, do not dislike the worlds of senses and ideas. Indeed, to embrace them fully is identical with true enlightenment. The wise person attaches to no goals, but the foolish person fetters himself or herself. There is one Dharma without differentiation. Distinctions arise from the clinging needs of the ignorant. To seek mind with the discriminating mind is the greatest of mistakes. Rest and unrest derive from illusion. With enlightenment, attachment to liking and disliking ceases. All dualities come from ignorant inference. They are like dreams, phantoms, hallucinations. It is foolish to try to grasp them. Gain and loss, right and wrong. Finally abandon all such thoughts at once. If the eye never sleeps, all dreams will naturally cease. If the mind makes no discriminations, the 10,000 things are as they are, of single essence. To realize the mystery of this one essence is to be released from all entanglements. When all things are seen without differentiation, the one self essence is everywhere revealed. No comparisons or analogies are possible in this causeless, relationless state of just the one. When movement stops, there is no movement, and when no movement, there is no stopping. When such dualities cease to exist, oneness itself cannot exist. To this fundamental state, no law or description applies. For the realized mind at one with the way, all self-centered striving ceases. Doubts and irresolutions vanish, and the truth is confirmed in you. With a single stroke, you are freed from bondage. Nothing clings to you, and you hold to nothing. All is empty, clear, self-illuminating, with no value to exert the mind. Here, thinking, feeling, understanding, and imagination are of no value. In this world, as it really is, there is neither self nor other than self. To know this reality directly is possible only through practicing non-duality. When you live this non-separation, all things manifest the one, and nothing is excluded. Whoever comes to enlightenment, no matter when or where, realizes personally this fundamental source. This Dharma truth has nothing to do with big or small, with time and space. Here a single thought is as 10,000 years. Not here, not there, but everywhere, always right before your eyes. Infinitely large and infinitely small. No difference, for definitions are irrelevant and no boundaries can be discerned. So likewise with existence and non-existence. Don't waste your time in arguments and discussion, attempting to grasp the ungraspable. Each thing reveals the one manifests as all things. To live in this realization is not to worry about perfection or non-perfection. To put your trust in the heart-mind is to live without separating. And in this non-duality, you are one with your life source. Words, words, the way is beyond language, for in it there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, and no today.
to invite our incense lighters up. If you open your books, you'll find our incense offering gatha. And I'd like to chant it together. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and fruit of understanding, slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Hello. A lot of new people here, or people that I haven't seen in a while at least. My name's Sonshin. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a teacher here. Just to kind of give you guys a couple, I guess, protocol things. If any of you have small children or need to take a step away for any reason, downstairs we do have another bathroom as well as a water fountain. There's some toys down there for anybody who would like to play with some toys. Another thing too is when we first enter the temple, we usually like to give a bow of acknowledgement. And then when we leave the temple, we do the same. Whenever we pass by the altar, we just give a little bow of acknowledgement. And when we come to our seat, the same. I like to think that we're not bowing because we're entering a sacred space, but our act of bowing is creating that sacred space. Another reminder too is if you can, try not to walk in the front of the dais for the same reasons, just to kind of create a space of honor. Last thing is when we're chanting, let's try to keep it upbeat and chanting together. Not so sad. With that, why don't we all stand up? Bring your books with you. We're going to be starting on page 7. But before we do that, if you could just kind of greet the people around you. We'll be starting with the 3 refugees chant on page 7. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. And if we'll turn to the next page, we'll be doing the Heart Sutra. Dhammam Prajna Paramita Prelaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna Paramita perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all karmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smells, taste, touch, or objects of the mind. No realm of sight. No realm of consciousness. No ignorance. No extinction of ignorance. No old age and death. No extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant, fearless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisattva. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisattva. Gate, gate, para gate, para samgate, bodhisattva. Dhamma prajna paramita hridaya sutra. Hi, all. So, a lot of the teachers in this first month of the year decided to kind of do a little bit of a wayfinding talk, which the long and short of it is, how did we end up here on this cushion? I'm going to try to fit this within the amount of time that I'm given, but I will do my best. I'll try to talk swiftly. We'll see how it goes. There's the old kind of Buddhist riddle of, what did your face look like before you're born? And I have to do a little bit of that too, because I can't just start my story when I was born, 1988, by the way. I'm actually going to start about 100 years ago, during the Great Dust Bowl. And I'm going to start with a family who had a small child, and we're going to call him Clark, although that might not be his actual name for reasons you'll find later on. During this Dust Bowl, their whole family was displaced, like a lot of people who lived in the Midwest during that time, and they had to basically flee as refugees inside their own country to California, is where they ended up. I know I had a lot of family in Oklahoma around that time too, and it was not a great time, especially since a lot of people really relied on, the farming industry and things like that. And it was a pretty horrible time to live through. So they ended up in California, and Clark was still very, very young. Tragically, his father was then struck by lightning and passed away, which is pretty shocking. You can laugh a little bit. And as you can imagine, his mother, who was lost their home, lost their friends and family, and lost her husband, didn't have a lot of options. And except from then, that they started working at a brothel to try to, make ends meet. For one reason or another, the state of California didn't find her fit to raise her children, so they were taken away, including Clark, who then spent the remainder of his childhood hopping around orphanages from place to place. Also, he experienced a tremendous amount of bullying and abuse from people. Clark was not his name that he was given when he was born. He absolutely hated his name that he was given. I don't know if part of it was resentment towards his own situation and his family. A lot of it too is a lot of the teasing that he would receive was connected to his name. He described his name as it was too feminine, and people are always picking on him and throwing slurs his way. So as soon as he was old enough, he legally changed his name to Clark, as far as we know. And of course, as soon as he's old enough to get out of the orphanage, maybe this is the time that he can kind of reclaim his life and turn things around. But unfortunately, it was the 1940s, and he was drafted into World War II. So things didn't go very well, and they kept going even worse and worse. But he did make it through the war alive. And when he left, he finally found a wife, and he eventually settled down. So this kind of brings me to the name of my talk, which is Karmic Impact. And karma is really hard to talk about because there's no really great English translation for the word karma. And unfortunately, it's kind of, let's just say, reduced in the way of our understanding of it. My favorite English word to understand karma is just the word impact. And as we know with Clark, he had a tremendous amount of karma that came his way. There was a huge impact that was put onto his life. When he finally started a family, unfortunately, he didn't really have a lot of the skills to turn this karma into something better. He found for the first time in his life he could have some control. Unfortunately, that control quickly turned to abuse. And part of that abuse was also preventing his family from even leaving the home. He wanted, his wife and then their new daughter named Jeannie to never leave the house. They were going to be there where they'd be subject to him with his complete control. He turned it into violence, into verbal abuse. And of course, this abuse turned into one of the most egregious instances of neglect and abuse that we have on record in our country. And it had to do with his daughter, Jeannie. Supposedly, when Jeannie was still very young, before she learned how to walk, she had a minor surgery that delayed her ability to walk by a few years. And of course, Clark, seeing this, just assumed that they, were disabled, that they would never really, amount to anything. And so he told the rest of his family that they weren't to interact with her anymore. They took their daughter at just 2 years old, and they locked her inside of a bedroom. This bedroom had 3 pieces of furniture. There was a cot that was sometimes used, not every night. It had a sleeping bag that could be wrapped really tight in order to keep her arms to her side. There was a small dresser drawers just in case they needed to get clothing, although the majority of the time she was not clothed. She was in there without any clothes on. And then in the middle of the room, there was a potty seat, a seat that was over a bucket. And Clark had tied restraints so that way Jeannie wouldn't be able to leave the potty seat. And from the time that she was 2 until she was 13, she spent every single minute inside of that room. It was said that she spent the majority of her time attached to this seat, to the potty seat, never leaving this. Her mother was not allowed to see her. About once a day, they would send her brother in, and he was told he was not allowed to say a single word to her. And he would go in and he would feed her some gruel really quickly and then just leave. If Jeannie were ever to cry or make any sounds, Clark would go in and he would beat her with a stick that he kept inside the room in the corner. It's also said that sometimes he would sit outside of her door and growl at her like a dog just until she would quiet down. When Jeannie turned 13, her mother finally had enough of it, and she gathered, Jeannie and her brother, and she left in the middle of the night, fleeing to her mother's house. And of course, she didn't have anything, so she went to, the protective services just to try to get some resources. And that's when the first person outside of Jeannie's family finally saw her, and they were horrified. When Jeannie finally arrived, she wasn't able to stand up straight. Her body was forever hunched because she was sitting for hours and hours and hours. She could no longer extend her legs straight. She had lost the ability to talk completely or make any sounds at all, because in her life, if she were to laugh, if she were to cry, if she were to whimper, she would be punished. Of course, this brings us one last time to Clark, because obviously he was arrested for this. Before his trial, though, Clark decided to take his own life. And he left a single note with a single line on it and said, "The world will never understand." Yes, there was a lot of karma put onto Clark. And unfortunately, instead of doing the work to try to work through that, it just passed right through and kept being the same impact that he was given. Maybe echoed even louder and harsher. Jeannie did receive a lot of help. There were a lot of people that came in trying to teach her how to talk. She didn't have the ability to chew because she was always given soft food, so she couldn't chew or swallow. Lots of therapy. She did eventually learn how to use a couple words at a time. But again, maybe not the most skillful people around her, because a lot of people saw this as an opportunity to study, what happens when somebody's never interacted with, never has language. So it said that it almost became this sort of tug of war of who gets to work with this child. Maybe she wasn't quite at the center of this, or there wasn't a lot of compassion for her as a person, but more of, I bet I can publish a nice paper if I work with this person. So being passed around, she eventually ended up in the foster care system, where unfortunately a lot of the abuse that she had received as a child returned. It said that she then regressed and lost a lot of the few words that she had gained. And to protect Jeannie's identity, they use pseudonyms. So Jeannie's actually not her true name. They've kind of hidden her identity and her location. She may very well still be alive today. She'd be a little older. She was found at 13 at 1970, so I'll let you do the math. But this story will be of relevance later. I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to fast forward about 18 years, 19, 20 years, to when I was about 2 or 3 years old. And I'm going to go to one of my very first memories. I remember I grew up in the desert of Arizona. At this point, we lived in a little town called Salmon Well. That was a coal mine, not a coal, sorry, copper mining town. Very small, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Kind of had to drive an hour to the biggest city if you needed to go grocery shopping. So there's a lot of desert around us, which was really great growing up. And in one of my first memories, I remember walking around in our backyard, and I came up to this cardboard box. And I don't know if it's because we had just moved there or ready to move out. But I remember looking inside the cardboard box, and inside of the box, there was a horny toad, a horned lizard. And I have to show you this because they're super cute. And I don't know if any of you are from Arizona, but they're all over the place. Okay, you ready? Super adorable. They have these little spines, but they're not really sharp. They're more for camouflage. They're really gentle and docile, but if you put them against the desert sand, they're almost invisible. And until they scurry around, you don't even notice they're there. And they spend most of their time basking in the sun and eating ants. So anyway, yes. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I should blow it up bigger. So I went to this cardboard box, and there was one of these horny toads in the box trying to climb out, and it couldn't because the claws couldn't climb out the box. I don't know how it got in there. And I remember for the first time realizing that my own suffering and my own sort of solipsis viewpoint wasn't my own, because I looked down and I saw this lizard also suffering and trying to get out of the box. And so I remember lifting it up, and the first thing I remember is, you can kind of see it in the picture, they have the softest little bellies. They're so soft and they're so gentle. And when you pick them up, it's just a precious little thing. And I picked him up and I set him down, and he ran off. And that memory has always stuck with me, because I think we all have those moments in our lives when we realize that, sort of the second lesson of karma. The first is that it's impact, right? The second is that we don't have to experience it alone. Karma is a collective thing. At that moment, I realized that the same karma of the lizard trapped in the box was mine, that I had. And I think from then on, I've used that sort of imagery to kind of help me become a compassionate person, realizing that collective karma. In a lot of ways, that lizard's my first teacher. I'm going to fast forward a little bit more in our timeline, and I'm going to talk about my actual first teacher, my first human teacher, at least. When I was in high school, I met a really, really amazing friend of mine named Logan, who I don't know if they'll ever hear this talk, but hi, Logan. I love you. I hope you're doing well. And like most kids in high school, when they have a best friend, what do? They start a band. And of course, we tried to practice at my house, and I lived kind of more in the city, and we got the cops called on us because of too much noise. And so Logan said, I live with my grandparents, and they kind of live out there a little ways in the middle of nowhere, and we can be as loud as we want, and my grandparents don't care. So I said, yes, let's do it. So we packed up the drum set, the amps, and we went to Logan's house, and we set up there. And, I spent nights and nights and nights there just making music with him. But other than friendship and music, another gift that Logan gave me was that of his grandfather. So it's kind of one of those serendipitous moments where Logan's grandfather actually was, for lack of a better term, a holy man. He spent much time in India receiving teachings from many people. Practiced as a guru um, in a tradition called Radhaswami Satmat, which is a branch of Sikhism created by a lot of Sikhs. One of the biggest difference is where the teaching lineage of the Sikhs ends at their holy book, and from then they kind of refer to that as their teacher. Radhaswami keeps that living tradition of the transmission from teacher to student. I'm going to tell you his name, which I have never memorized even from this point, because in India, whenever you achieve anything, you're given yet another name. Param Sant Sad Sat Guru Janakanan Bulasha. But to me, he was Grandpa Fuller. I also, at this time, no longer lived in the deserts of Arizona. I lived up here in the frigid north of Michigan. And so my own grandparents are pretty far away. So he quickly became a surrogate, at 16 and 17. It almost happened by accident that, just the time that I spent there, and spending time with him, he taught me how to meditate for the first time, taught me lots of things about spiritual practice. And I'll never forget, in one of the most important talks I've ever had, and I'm hoping a lot of you have had this experience with a teacher before, but the whole world just vibrates. It's almost like this tunnel vision and this connectedness that you had. And I remember him saying, you reach this point in your vibrations and you lift it up and all the karma dissipates. And I remember seeing this imagery of just all the impact that we are given just dissolving away. Grandpa Fuller died in 2011, and I remember that being a really, really hard time for me, for anybody who's lost a teacher, which I'm sure a lot of you had, which was followed by the next section of my story and kind of being a little bit lost when you don't have a teacher. Just like the Sikhs, where, my traditions came out of, I referred to books. These will be my new teachers. And I did a lot of reading, especially reading of philosophy. I really loved philosophy. And eventually, my reading of philosophy brought me to a lot of readings of psychology. And that brought me to what I do now for a living, which is I work with the autism population. I work with people who don't have the ability to speak. I work with people who have severe aggression, don't have other ways to communicate, and I work with them and their families to try to give them the gift of speech. And this is when the story of Jeannie comes, and the karma of Clark came and hit me, because I was now these people fighting over Jeannie to try to write the papers. I have never come up to a case quite as severe as Jeannie, but every single one of those symptoms that she came with as a result of that karma, I've dealt with my own clients. And I remember learning about all these horrible, egregious things that have happened with people with disabilities and having to take the tremendous weight of that karma on. In my own field of mental health, there's been horrible, horrible things that have happened not even that long ago. Even one generation of practitioners before me. And it's such a huge weight that you have to take on to try to do better. And, I saw that. I remember the lizard. I'm not going to run away from the lizard in the box. I'm going to pick the lizard up. And I feel the same way about the people that I work with, is that this is an opportunity for me to do better and to set a better example for the people that I'm teaching to do my job afterwards. I'm going to continue my show and tell moment here. In my reading, I came across a really, really important book written in 2013. It's called A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. And it's a great novel. I really love this book, but I had no idea how big of an impact it would make on me. Keep in mind, I'm teacherless at this time, doing a lot of reading. And I read this, who was written by Ruth Ozeki, who is a Soto Zen Buddhist priest who authored this book. And I'm not going to go into the story. I'm going to make you guys read it. But it's basically the story of, a person whose grandmother was a Soto Zen priest. And through it, they talk about all of the amazing rituals in Soto Zen and some of the philosophy, and most importantly, Dogen, who was the founder of the Soto Zen tradition. And this was the first time in this book that I'd ever heard the name Dogen. Hey, Dogen. And of course, me being a nerd about philosophy, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look them up. Turns out that Dogen was a very prolific writer. And so I started diving into Dogen and reading Dogen, falling in love with this philosophy of Japanese Zen Buddhism. And so, like everybody, when they nerd out about something, what do? No, we Google it. I remember I opened up my browser and I Googled Soto Zen Grand Rapids. And that's where I found Just Sit. And my teacher, Suji, who many of you may know. Also, they're going to be here next week to give the talk. So I don't have a picture of them, but I will. If you come next week, you can see. And I was really, really needing a teacher. And actually, I have another picture for you guys. This is actually Grandpa Fuller. I wanted to bring a picture of him because I wanted him to be here. And this is a picture of my first teacher with his teacher, Shaoran Singh Ji. And I keep this on my altar because it's a good reminder of, it's no longer my practice, but, I learned so much that I try to keep this near me. So anyway, I Googled it. I sent an email out and they invited me to come to their Zendo that they had in the basement of their house. And so I was like, well, what do I got to lose? So I showed up. It was very small. I think the first time I went, maybe there was one other person there. And then pretty soon, for a good amount of time, it was just me and Suji. I would show up alone and we'd go. And of course, this was a great treasure for me because since it was only me and Suji, I had to learn pretty quick. Because if we're going to do the Soto Zen service, there's a lot of moving parts and we all had to participate. I skipped this part, but in my early life, I did a lot of music. Both of my families very musical. And when I stepped into the Suji Zendo, it felt like going on stage of an orchestra and performing a piece. There's so many bells, so many choreographed movements. There's no time to sort of stop and ponder and think. And, pun intended, you're just locked into that Zen movement where it's just flow. And I really, really appreciated that. I had another one of those moments, that sort of big vibration moment with Suji once, where they told me about Avalokiteshvara, who many of you may know as Guan Yin. If you're not familiar, just look all the way over. They're right over there. Also here. Guan Yin, the Bodhisattva of great compassion. She told me that Guan Yin, Avalokiteshvara, has hundreds of eyes to see all the suffering of the world, and hundreds of ears to hear all the suffering of the world, and thousands of arms reaching out to help. And then the last thing that she said is Guan Yin eats the suffering of the world, or eats the karma of the world. And I thought back to my first teacher, the dissipation of karma. And then there's the consumption, the eating of karma too. It's at that point that I decided to take on my bodhisattva vows through Suji, and I did so. And by I did so, I mean I sewed. I actually sewed this. A lot of sewing in Soto Zen. I'm very grateful to have a teacher again. It's great. If you all don't have a teacher, well, I'm sorry, and you'll find one. Maybe it'll be a lizard in a box. Keep open-minded. I have one more story. I'm going to try to tie this all together. So I have another really good friend, Chloe, who I don't think will ever see this, but if you do, hi, Chloe. And, without giving too much away about Chloe, she doesn't have the greatest relationship with her mother, who's a little bit of an eccentric. And her mother decided that she was going to sell everything that she owns and move to Mexico, which go her. And Chloe said, I found a bunch of this stuff that belongs to my mom, and it looks like maybe it's Buddhist. I don't know. Do you want it? I said, sure. And that's when she brought me this. And she said, my mother was, on one of her, crazy world hopping adventures, and she ended up in, I want to say, Thailand. And, apparently she walked into a temple, saw it, said, that's cool, and she stole it. And then she took it, and then she brought it, used it as a decoration in her home. And then when she wanted to move to Mexico, I ended up with it. There's a lot of karma attached to this guy. He went from his, his place in a temple in Taiwan for I don't know how long. This is not new. It's been eroded away. When I got it, it was completely covered in rust, and I had to kind of bring it back to life. It's decades, if not centuries old. Couldn't tell you. But, I got this back, and, I've seen enough Indiana Jones to know what happens when you steal an artifact from a temple. So I said, you know what? I've been handed this karma, and I'm going to try to take this, and I'm going to dissipate the karma. I'm going to transform the karma. So I said, you know what? I may not have a giant, Buddhist temple to set this in, but I have my own Butsudan. And so I don't know how long it was sitting in a shelf in, some kooky lady's house, but it is now sitting in my place of honor as my Buddha Rupa. So if I could travel to Thailand and try to find, its home, I would, but this is the best I can do with the karma that I'm given. I guess to bring it all full circle, karma is impact. It's the impact that we're dealt. It's the impact that we leave. It's not our own. It's collectively shared. I'm still dealing with the karma that was handed to me by the Dust Bowl baby, Clark. And I'm going to do my best to take that karma and transform it and put it out as something better. So take that next time you think about karma. It's not just, somebody cut me off. I hope karma gets you in the end, Maybe be a little bit. I hope they realize the impact that they just made, It's not about hoping that it comes back around to other people, but instead realizing the karma that you've taken in, and how can you transform that? How can you become an alchemist, turn that lead into gold? I think that's at the heart of a lot of the Buddhist teachings. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but when I figure it out, I will. I talked a long time, so I want to make sure that we also have some time to sit with meditation. I'm not going to give you a really long sort of guided meditation, but I'm going to give you this image. I want you to breathe in, and I want you to feel the impact of your life. I want you to feel everything that led up to you, all the people that have hurt you, all the things that haven't gone well, the dust bowls, the wars, the missing parents. And I want you to take that, and I want you to channel Avalokiteshvara. I want you to channel my first teacher, and I want you to transform that and exhale it, purified. We're kind of magic that way, that we have that ability. We also, can take in that karma and throw it right back out as well, though. It's a huge responsibility that we all have. So I ask of all of you that you will take the work and the time to take that karma and transform it, if you do nothing else while you're here on earth. Let us prepare ourselves for meditation. Hopefully that was long enough to dissipate all of our karma. I'd like to take some time to bring up any joys and concerns that you all have. Hopefully more joys and concerns, but we'll take your concerns too. So if you have one, if you could just raise your hand and we can get a mic to you.
It's more concern than joy, but I recently had a ghost pregnancy, which is when you experience all the symptoms, but you're not actually pregnant. And that sucked.
I just got back late Friday night from a trip to Honduras, which was amazing. Like, I just still feel so lit up. And it was also a really great reset, just to not have access to my phone. Felt so present. And I'm just, 2023 was a really hard year. So it was really sweet to start 2024, bringing in so much joy and goodness and such a wonderful opportunity. And I'm just really grateful to be back here. It was really hard to leave like the rainforest and the sun and come back here, but seeing some really beautiful people and then just sharing space here helps me to remember all the beautiful things I have here. So thank you all for creating this space.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Shane, or Gajisu. I have the joy. Yesterday we did our first in-person retreat here at the temple in years, since before the pandemic. It was really great to be able to practice with so many people for 9 hours, meditating, walking meditation, enjoying food together. So I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mar. It's a pleasure to be here. Every time I come here, I just feel so filled up with joy. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I've had tremendous amount of perspective shifts in the last 5-ish years and coming to a place where I finally feel centered and at peace. And it's just beautiful to come into a space like this and be able to share that with you all. So thank you.
My friend Craig here reminded me I did have a joy at a place called Camp Henry in Newaygo, but also wanted to express my joy of finding a Buddhist temple so close by to where I am, just up the street. I haven't been to one in over 10 years, up in Marquette at Northern Michigan University. His name was Paul Lemberg. I believe his title was Tenshin, but I haven't been to a Zen service since then, and it's a great joy and a great privilege to be here. Thank you, all of you.
Anyone else? All right, why don't we just take a moment of silence to kind of hold that all in? I do have a few announcements. On Sunday, January 21st at 11:30 a.m., so after the service that day, there is a GRBT board meeting, and all Sangha members are invited to observe. That may have already happened. What even is the date? Okay, I can skip most of these, actually. There are a couple for the future, though. The first one involves me and Shinkyu. So we are actually shaving our heads. My theory is that I have a little bit more to lose. So we are taking on our ordination to become Soto Zen priests. So Suji is actually traveling up to perform that ceremony next Saturday at 1 p.m. at the temple, and I would love to see all of you there. And then the next day, the Sunday, Suji will be giving the talk as well. So hopefully I've talked them up enough to get you excited. I'm very happy to see her again. It's been a while since I've seen her face in person. So I'd love to see all of you there. If nothing else, if you're wondering what I look like bald. We also have our intermediate meditation class on Saturday, February 24th, and that's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. here at the temple. And we just ask that you register before the Friday beforehand. And if you'd like more information, you can contact Kunga, who is not here today, but I'm sure you can get a hold of them through email. We also have an online meditation group that meets on Wednesdays from 7 to 7:45 p.m. Over Zoom. Again, you can get in contact with Kunga. We also have a Thursday Dharma discussion group on Thursdays 9:30 to 11 a.m. and they meet at the temple, and they're meeting through December 21st. And I don't know if Ryan's here today, but that's Jingsu. You can contact them for more information. Also, if you have any questions in general, if we're wearing black or gray or brown, sorry if you're wearing brown, you don't know what's going on. We also have our Buddhist-based recovery meetings. Those are Mondays at 6:30 p.m. At the temple. We also have Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. at the Alano Club, and Fridays at 10:05 a.m. Here at the temple or through Zoom. Do we have any other announcements that I have missed? Yes. Would you like to give it? Okay.
Good morning, Sangha. My name is Ellen. The word dana means generosity, and it comes in several different forms. Your time, if you would ever like information regarding helping out our tech support, being an incense lighter, a greeter, there are several things that you can do, but being generous with your time. Also, materials. I usually give the toilet paper and tea bag speech, but I'm not going to do that today. You're welcome. If you're interested in what we do need, Nikki, who is not here today, but on the board, she's the person you contact so that we don't end up with a room completely stocked with toilet paper and then have no tea bags. So that's the way we're going from now on. And of course, generosity regarding your monetary donations. No one here at the temple receives a paycheck. Everything that happens here happens because somebody volunteered the money, the time, the materials. If you are so inclined at any time and you would like to make a monetary donation to the temple, first of all, right here, we have Dana boxes. One on the wall right behind the curtain. The other one, the little black one, right over, she gestured over there. Way to go, Ashton. So that will take a check or money. There's also a QR code on each of those boxes. It will take you directly to PayPal. If you're watching on YouTube this morning, there's a drop-down menu that also has a link to PayPal. If you go to the temple's website, zengr.org, there's also a donate button there. You can set up a one-time donation. You could set up a monthly donation, which can be changed at any time. So there you go.
So next Sunday, the Buddha Boutique that we've had downstairs, we're going to be having a sale of all of the items that have been in there, and we will set it up in the front lobby. So after service.
Thank you. I also have one more thing to say, and this is more of homework. This is homework for anybody who's a regular here, has been here before. We have a lot of new faces today. A lot of people who are coming here again. And I want you all to make them feel welcome, to introduce yourselves afterwards. We're going to be having tea downstairs afterwards, and I hope to meet a lot of you guys. I'll be down there for some tea and some talks and whatever else. So be friendly, or I'll get mad. If you will go back to your booklets, and if you'll look at page 9, we're going to be doing our closing gathas, and we will stand for that. Thank you. Together. For all unskillful actions ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, I now atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if we can all face each other and give each other a bow. One last thing before we all get tea. If you can just leave the cushions like you found them, or fluff them up a bit, return all of the pamphlets, booklets, and I'll see you downstairs. Thank you so much. Yeah.